to me your secrets. Show me your nightmares. All cats are gray in the dark, dear, whether or not you dare.
Welcome to All Cats Are Gray in the Dark. I'm your host, April Simmons. This podcast contains true cases of graphic violent crimes and other stories of a dark nature. Please be advised that due to the subject matter and violent, sometimes sexual content and obscene language, this podcast is not for children or the faint of heart.
Hey everybody. Welcome back. For all of us, it's been a while. We're actually in person recording again.
Together at last.
Yep.
Together forever.
We've got a little mini episode for you today. What I'm calling a new segment that we're going to do on some random episodes called Itty Bitty Mysteries.
I like it.
I just came up with that, and I don't really know.
It works.
It works. I just wanted to make a few quick notes before we get started. I took off episode 23 from our feed, so if you notice that missing, I'm sorry. We had some really bad sound issues because we recorded by phone during the quarantine, and it was practically unlistenable, if that's even a word. I don't know if it is or not. But it
sounds like
was.
It would be.
Yeah. So I took it down completely. We may re-record it in the future, or we may do a different episode with our friend Jeff.
I'd love to re-record it, or at least do another episode, because Jeff was just fantastic.
And I felt like it was a pretty good episode, too, because on our end, it sounded good until I played it back later, and it was really choppy, and you couldn't understand a lot of stuff that was going on. So I took it down, so I apologize for that. So when you notice that their episode 23 is missing, that's why. Also, we did that episode about Cindy James. They recently came out on Minds of Madness podcast with an episode on her, and they had a lot of additional stuff that I had not heard before. So definitely go check out Minds of Madness if you want some more info on the Cindy James case. And also, I'd love to, for anybody that wants to send condolences because Sahara's mom passed away recently.
Oh, that's very sweet of you.
So anybody that wants to send condolences, check out our description on the podcast, and we'll have email and stuff like that where you can get in touch and let her know.
I appreciate that. It's been a hell of a week, guys. It's been a hell of a past 3 or 4 months, hasn't it? With quarantine.
And it's nice to get back together in person because it's completely different and impersonal on the phone when you're not getting to hang out and see each other's reactions and stuff like that. So
and choppy. I mean, as you saw with episode 23, it just doesn't come through like it should.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, today's itty bitty mystery is about mass hysteria.
I have that right now.
I think we all do right now. And the first one, the whole reason I started checking this out was because I had read about the laughter epidemic in Tanganyika? I don't know how to say it as usual. I really should be more professional and start looking up pronunciations and stuff. But, the research, I would like to defend myself and say that the research usually takes at least days for me to compile stuff and decide what I want to include and edit it and everything.
And why can't they just name the place like Dave?
Let's all go to Dave.
Let's go to Dave.
Yeah. So we're not being culturally insensitive.
No, not by any means.
It's just me being lazy. So I'm sorry. But it's the laughter epidemic of 1962. It was an outbreak of mass hysteria or mass psychogenic illness, rumored to have occurred in or near the village of Pashasha on the western coast of Lake Victoria in Tanganyika, which once united with Zanzibar became the modern nation of Tanzania.
I was going to say Zanzibar I've heard of. I know exactly
and
where
it's
we
near
are in
the border, near the border of Uganda.
Okay.
Laughter epidemic began on January 30th, 1962 at a mission-run boarding school for girls in Kashasha. It started with 3 girls and spread throughout the school, affecting 95 of the 159 pupils aged 12 to 18. Symptoms lasted from a few hours to 16 days. Teaching staff were unaffected and reported that students were unable to concentrate on their lessons. So, in other words, they got a case of the giggles.
They got fucking stoned is what they did. Somebody brought in some Thai sticks, and they just got stoned. It was some of that, when was it, 1960s?
1962.
That's some of that 60s giggle weed that you can't find anymore.
But it was so bad that the school closed on March 18th.
For good?
No, I think for that semester or whatever. They're just like, we're done.
Let's say Alice Cooper would be proud.
The epidemic spread to Nishamba, a village where several of the girls lived in April and May. 217, mostly young villagers, had laughing attacks. The Kashasha school reopened May 21st and reclosed at the end of June. Earlier that month, the laughing epidemic spread to Ramashenya Girls Middle School near Bukoba, affecting 48 girls. The Kashasha school was sued for allowing the children and their parents to transmit it to the surrounding area. Other schools, Kashasha itself and another village, were affected to some degree. 18 months after it started, the phenomena died off. The laughter reports were widely accompanied by descriptions of fainting, flatulence, respiratory problems, rashes, crying, and screaming. In all, 14 schools were shut down and 1,000 people were affected. How crazy is that?
That sounds awful.
That sounds like, to me, they're like, I wonder if they ever did any investigation into, like, maybe there was some kind of chemical leak inside the schools, or
I was thinking
something
it sounds
weird like
a
that.
mad scientist experiment, kind of like what's going on with Corona, something let loose out of a lab, you know.
Well, here's a theory. Christian F. Hempelman from Purdue University has theorized that the episode was stress-induced. In 1962, Tanganyika had just won its independence, he said, and students had reported feeling stressed because of higher expectations by teachers and parents.
I don't think that's it at all. I don't think something spreads like that unless it is contagious. And yes, laughter can be contagious.
But with the other symptoms,
not like that.
With there being other symptoms,
yeah, not with the
something's weird with
respiratory and
that.
the diarrhea and the farting, and it's just no. That is an actual illness.
Yeah,
that I don't think is brought on by stress by any means.
But MPI, he says, usually occurs in people without a lot of power. MPI is the last resort for people of a low status. It's an easy way for them to express that something is wrong. Sociologist Robert Bartholomew and psychiatrist Simon Wesley both put forward a cultural-specific epidemic hysteria hypothesis. Say that 20 times fast, Jesus. Anyway, pointing out that occurrences in 60s Africa were prevalent in missionary schools, and Tanganyikan society were ruled by strict traditional elders. So the likelihood is the hysteria was a manifestation of cultural dissonance between the traditional conservatism at home and new ideas challenging those beliefs in school, which they termed conversion reactions.
I don't see it happening, because I think if... Whoa! I just knocked the mic over. I think if that were true, we would be having that right now.
Yeah.
Because there's cognitive dissonance. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the world. The entire world is more stressed out than it's been in my entire lifetime, and I'm 45 years old. I don't think that's it. I think this is something that was viral or bacterial that got into people's brains, almost like the stuff that's getting into rivers and oceans and things, the amoebas or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think it's something like, not necessarily an amoeba, but I think it is a disease that was affecting them. Because I think if it was the other thing, we would all be laughing hysterically right now with everything going on in the world and all the madness that's happening.
Yeah. All right, on to the next one. This one's going to make you laugh. Meowing nuns.
Yes, that one. Yeah. Okay, now I've got the laughing disease.
Yep. According to an 1844 book citing an unnamed medical textbook, a nun in a French convent during an unspecified time in the Middle Ages, and inexplicably began to meow like a cat, shortly leading to other nuns in the convent also meowing. Eventually, all the nuns would meow together for a certain period every day, leaving the surrounding community astonished. This did not stop until the police threatened to whip the nuns.
And then it stopped?
Yeah.
That was a prank. They were doing that. They needed some comic
freaky nuns.
Yeah, they needed some comic relief right now. So they decided.
No, but it made me think of the cat nuns in Doctor Who.
Yes, they were awesome. You know, that's probably where Moffat got the idea from for that story.
And then there's bitey nuns.
Ooh, that's kinky.
According to a 1784 author, a nun in a German convent in the 1400s began to bite her companions, and the behavior spread through other convents in Germany, into Holland, and as far as Italy. And the weather's getting scary outside. We might have to end up pausing in a minute.
Yeah, I was thinking you want to take a break. It's getting very tornadic looking out there.
Yeah, we're about 10 minutes in, so we're going to take a little quick break to check out the weather, and then we'll be back with the rest of the stories.
Leave the Lights On is a true crime podcast with a paranormal twist. Join creator Eliza and her co-host as they explore terrifying true stories and chilling crimes. Growing up, Eliza had an odd obsession with the darkest desires of humanity and an insatiable curiosity about the afterlife. Now, each week, Eliza brings you tales that will make you want to lock your doors, hide in your room, and of course, leave the lights on. Available on Spotify and Apple Podcast.
All right, we're back from our break for whatever it was.
Welcome back. We're still alive. It's storming really bad out here.
we took a few seconds to check the forecast to make sure we weren't about to die. So, we're not yet anyway.
Not yet.
Not yet. Next up is the story of the dancing plague.
Okay.
1518 was a case of dancing mania that occurred in Strasbourg, Alsace, modern day France.
Strasbourg.
Mm-hmm. In the Holy Roman Empire in July of 1518, somewhere between 50 and 400 people took to dancing for days. Historical sources agree that there was an outbreak of dancing after a single woman started dancing. A group of mostly young women joined in, and the dancing did not seem to die down. It lasted for such a long time that it attracted the attention of the Strasbourg magistrate and bishop, and some number of doctors ultimately intervened, putting the afflicted in a hospital. Where the controversy arises, the matter of whether people ultimately danced to their deaths. The main source for this claim comes from John Waller, who wrote several journal articles on the subject in the book A Time to Dance, A Time to Die, The Extraordinary Story of the Dancing Plague of 1518. There does not appear to be any sources contemporaneous to the events that make note of fatalities. The sources cited by Waller that mention deaths were all from later retellings of the event. There's also uncertainty around the identity of the initial dancer, either an unnamed woman or Frau Trophea, and the number of dancers involved.
She was a witch.
Modern theories include food poisoning caused by the toxic and psychoactive chemical products of ergot fungi, which rose commonly on grains in the wheat family, such as rye, that were being used for baking bread. Ergotamine is the main psychoactive product of ergot fungi. It is structurally related to the drug lysergic acid, LSD in other words.
Thinking they just went on a trip.
So they accidentally dosed themselves with LSD from eating bread.
They did some Molly and went on a rave, man. That's what they did.
But the same fungus had been implicated in other major historical anomalies, including the Salem witch trials. How weird is that? Because some of the women had the same symptoms.
Yeah, I could see that.
Waller speculates that the dancing was stress-induced psychosis on a mass level, since the region where the people danced was riddled with starvation and disease, and the inhabitants tended to be superstitious. 7 other cases of dancing plague were reported in the same region during the medieval era.
I hate to say it, I kind of wish that we had gotten that instead, because at least we'd be having fun and dancing
I know,
and having
right?
a good trip, and instead of this plague. This plague sucks.
And because it got brought up in that previous one, I added Salem Witch Trials to this, because in colonial Massachusetts, adolescent girls Abigail Williams, Betty Paris, Ann Putnam Jr., and Elizabeth Hubbard began to have fits that were described by a minister as beyond the power of epileptic fits or natural disease to the effect. The events resulted in the Salem witch trials and series of hearings, which resulted in the execution of 20 citizens and the death of 5 other citizens of Salem Village, Massachusetts, present-day Danvers, Massachusetts, and nearby towns who were accused of practicing witchcraft. So they had some symptoms reporting to that were similar to the dancing plague, and
some of the women were executed simply for having affairs.
Yeah,
with married men on the council, and one of them even got pregnant, and he just didn't want her or the baby to disrupt his own marriage, and be labeled as an adulterer. So there's a lot to do with that.
Yeah, but the initial incident that started the whole Salem witch trials was where it was teenage girls that were having fits.
Wow, that's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Can you
I would just be wanting
having fits with their attitudes,
yeah,
tantrums.
Burn the witch.
Yeah.
God, I would have been burned.
I 100% would have been burned at the stake back then, no doubt. Just for the way I look.
The lights just blinked. Scary.
Oh, lightning.
Whoa.
Ghosts are among us.
We're gonna die. Anyway. My husband makes fun of me because I say that all the time for everything. Yeah, I'm just either I'm gonna die.
Well,
it's
you're not lying. We are.
Yeah.
We don't.
I just have an overdramatic sense of humor because just anything happens and I'm like, I'm gonna die. Yeah. You know. Wurzburg, can't even say it right. Wurzburg, 1749, an outbreak of screaming, squirming, and trance in a nunnery led to the execution of a suspected witch.
Suspected?
Are you
sure?
They
couldn't even prove it. It's just like,
are you sure they were not just really in bad need of some dig?
Probably.
Is that terrible of me to say?
Probably beautiful, and they were all hags, and they got jealous and decided to label her a witch and kill her. And welcome to Christianity.
Here's one close to home. Mount Pleasant, Mississippi in 1976. School officials suspected drug use after 15 students fell to the ground writhing, but no drugs were found, and hysteria is assumed to be the culprit. At one point, 1/3 of the school's 900 students stayed home for fear of being hexed. This is in the 70s, and they're still afraid of witches.
I was going to say, if that was in the 80s, that might have been me. But
Mount Pleasant, Mississippi. I don't even know where that is.
A few of my classmates.
Do you know where Mount Pleasant is?
I've heard of it, but I'm not sure where it is. Yeah, I think it's somewhere between Central and the coast.
Yeah. I just thought that was funny that it's 1976 and they're still afraid of witches.
Hexes. Yeah.
Mississippi. Anyway, the last one, I think, is strawberries with sugar virus.
Oh, I want that one.
I know, right? In 2006, this is a more recent one. In May 2006, an outbreak of so-dubbed Morangos cum acusar virus, strawberries with sugar virus is what it translates to, was reported in Portuguese schools named after the popular teen girls show.
I've never heard of that teen girls show.
I guess, but it's because it's in Portugal. Yeah. 300 or more students at 14 schools reported similar symptoms to those experienced by the characters in a recent episode where a life-threatening virus affected the school, depicted in the show. Symptoms included rashes, difficulty breathing, and dizziness. The belief was there was a medical outbreak forced some schools to temporarily close. The Portuguese National Institute for Medical Emergency eventually dismissed it as mass hysteria. I just think some kids wanted to get out of school and they saw this episode and thought, if
Well,
I
it
pretend,
makes me also wonder if it's possibly, and not just this one, but a few of the others too, thinking about it, if it's psychosomatic. Like you hear of when women get pregnant for the first time and their husbands or significant others start feeling the symptoms, they feel the nausea and they want to eat 4 BLTs at one sitting. And, they go through the symptoms too of pregnancy, even though, of course, they're men and they're not pregnant. I wonder if it's something similar to that. But the physical symptoms make me wonder with the rashes and things like that. Our bodies can do really strange things. Stress
I do believe in.
I've gotten stress valves before.
I've got a stress ulcer right now.
Yeah,
so
the body can react like that.
Yeah, so I totally believe in that.
I wonder if almost all of these are some kind of psychosomatic tendencies. Remember the woman, but it also makes me think of, I don't know if you've heard this story, the woman who had surgery in Florida, and she was from Florida, and she woke up with a British accent.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, and she only speaks with a British accent now. It was something that was triggered during her surgery in her brain that made her have a British accent. So yeah, I think our bodies and our brains can do really strange things. It's just even more bizarre though that it happens to 300-400 people, 1,000 people at one time.
Anyway, I think that's pretty much the last one I've got. And our Shoutout podcast this week is The Crimes We're Into. They're a friend of our podcast, and they're just starting out. So go check. They just released their first 3 episodes, so go check them out. And
shout out to Bonna.
And yes, and shout out
our
to
number
Bonna.
1 fan. We love Bonna.
And also we're gonna do probably an anniversary episode coming up because we're only maybe a week and a half or so from our anniversary.
How has it been?
It's been a year.
A whole year.
So if you want to submit feedback or questions or just pretty much anything that you have to say, you can use our contact info. If you leave us a voicemail message on our phone number, we will play that on the episode. Or if you just want to email us or message us, that's fine too. Get in touch with us and send us in some stuff.
And what is our phone number?
It's in the info. 662-200-1909.
That was a great year. No plague.
Yeah. So, until next time,
talk hard.
Talk hard. Bye-bye.